Okay, welcome to our fourth speaker series event. The series is Impactful Women, Inspiring Lives. Thank you for taking your time today on your busy Saturdays to join us. Mark your calendars for the second Saturday of each month at 2 p.m. here on our Living Her Legacy Facebook page. I'm excited to introduce you to my friend Sosamma Samuel-Burnett today. Sosamma, thank you very much for taking time to join us.
Well, thank you for the invitation, Patty. Wonderful to be with you.
Thank you. I feel the same way. I appreciate your time. I have a few links in our chat box for your review. And if you would, please put your first name and where you live in the chat box. It's always nice for us to know that we have guests, because this isn't like Zoom where you see everything. We don't see our guests at all. So if you would mind, it would certainly be nice for us to know who's joining us today. So let's begin our visit today with a brief introduction to Living Her Legacy for those who may not know us. Living Her Legacy has been approved to create the first historic public outdoor art education exhibit in Fort Collins and in Colorado to recognize women's accomplishments to inspire girls' futures. So when you go to Old Town next time, go to the north side of Coopersmith's Pool Table Brewery and you'll see our exhibit, the art exhibition. We've put up 8 of the 48 legacy honorees and we're moving along. The next 4 will go up in September. So stay tuned for the announcement so you'll get to see that event. So we're very excited. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to my guest today. Sosamma Samuel-Burnett is an attorney, is the founder and president of Global Justice. She has more than 35 years experience as a human rights advocate and policy professional, and nearly 20 years as a college professor. She directed many advocacy and policy organizations and served as a fellow at the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland. So I'm not done yet with sharing her background. So with what I've shared so far, I know you will enjoy our visit today. She holds a BSFS from Georgetown University School of Foreign Service and Juris Doctor from the University of Minnesota Law School. She regularly serves as an adjunct faculty member at Bushnell University, Colorado Christian University, and Trinity Law School. She previously served as a fellow, Geopolitics, Global Justice at the Centennial Institute at Colorado Christian University. Sosamma has served as board director and board chair for Agape International Missions, a leading international anti-human trafficking organization, for 13 years, and also as board of director for several other advocacy organizations. She was founder and chair of the Public Policy Department and Public Policy Institute at William Jessup University in California. She served on several school district committees, including the TSD Gifted and Talented Advisory Committee, Strategic Planning Committee, and WCMS and TVHS School Accountability Committees. Sosamma also advises many organizations on justice, human rights, leadership, and faith, and is an international commentator and speaker. Sosamma was the 2018 Dr. Joan King International Woman of Vision honoree from Colorado Women of Influence organization in 2017 and 2018, nominee for the L'Oreal Woman of Worth, and 2019 nominee for the Martin Luther King Jr. Award in Colorado. So with this introduction, we can all clap and we will now begin our visit. So thank you again for everybody for joining us.
Thank you, Patty. That was such a lovely intro. Oh, so much.
Yes, no, it's very nice. Thank you for sharing. So if any of our guests have questions, since I'm the only person on this side seeing the chat box, if you would please put them in, and then when we get done at the end, I will go through and look for questions and ask Sosamma as we finish our visit so that we don't miss any questions, okay? So Sosamma, let's begin with you sharing a little bit about yourself and where you grew up.
Well, I was born in India, and in southern India in a state called Kerala. And Kerala was a very unusual place where a lot of India is Hindu, but in Kerala you have a lot of Christians. And so we had a unique experience there. But when I was about 4 years old, my father, who had moved to the United States for education, had an opportunity for his first job after master's in Canada. And so when I was 4, we moved from India all the way across the globe, and we moved to Canada, which was a big change. You know, and my mom, who had never left her little village in Kerala, made that trek all the way across the globe with 2 children, my brother and I, to get to my dad. So that was great. And then Canada became our home for about 6 years. I did my grade school, most of it there. But my dad always had a dream of coming to the United States. And even though he did his education here, as I mentioned, his first job was Canada. And the Canada that we knew then was very different than the Canada of today. And he just felt a strong sense that we weren't meant to be there forever. So he had a new opportunity in the United States, in Minnesota, of all places. Mm-hmm. And then that led our family there when I was, kind of late grade school, early middle school time. And we grew up there. I call Minnesota home in many ways because it was the, sort of the transformational time of my life. Mm-hmm. And we made wonderful friends and had great roots there. And then I went on to do my undergraduate work, as you noted, at Georgetown, Washington, D.C., and spent quite a few years in Washington, D.C. And then later, when I met my husband, we ended up in Mississippi for a short while, and then ultimately in California for many years, and then, of course, here in Colorado for the past 9.
Wonderful. Thank you. And when you, as you said, it was most likely a challenge for your mother as she moved from what was familiar to her to a completely different country, as well as having to meet new friends and start over.
Absolutely. My mom is one of my heroes, and she is remarkable in terms of her strength and courage because she didn't come with a lot of education, a lot of worldly experience, but she came with a vision, a shared vision with my dad. And what that did was embolden her. She has a strong faith, and so she prayed a lot. And, when I think back to some of the stories, I tear up both in terms of being touched, mm-hmm. but also just some of the humor of it. So we all learned how to speak English watching Sesame Street together. And wonderful stories like that. Mm-hmm. The immigrant life is a very different one.
Yes.
But we had a wonderful experience, and she was a great sort of, kind of the key figure in our family that just kind of held us all together, and with her courage, with her inspiration, with just her love, and so I really appreciated all that she did to give us this opportunity here.
Mm-hmm. And don't you feel, as I do, that when we ask individuals who their role models are, probably more than 80% would say their mother?
Oh, without a doubt. Mm-hmm. But I must say that my dad is a wonderful inspiration for me, too. My mom and dad, we always joke about the fact that I feel like my father was the one that my mom gave me what I call the runway. My mm-hmm. husband's a pilot, so we use these right. references. My mom gave me that runway. My dad gave me flight. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the way that we see it. And you're right. They are our heroes. And moms, gosh, what an important role they play.
Yes, I certainly agree. Well, thank you for that. So let's go on to our next question. How did you become interested in the legal profession, and what experiences led you to initiate your nonprofit, Global Justice?
This is kind of a funny story. I mentioned I was from India, and almost everybody that was part of my family from India was one of two things. Either they were in the health profession, doctors and, those mm-hmm. types, or they were in the business side, but more like engineers and scientists and people like that. Mm-hmm. There was really no one in my family that was a lawyer. So I can't really say where that came from, but I can tell you that my dad, as an international businessman, he always talked about the globe because he traveled the globe. He always had an interest in what was going on in the world. Mm-hmm. And I think we were just raised that way. We always watched the news. We always talked about global issues. So I think there was kind of a trickle down. Maybe that had more of an influence on me than I realized. But I think mm-hmm. that I just always had an interest in what was going on around the world. And I think that mm-hmm. I also recognize that those things that are going on around the world, there were policy issues around that too. So when it affected one person, it could affect many. So mm-hmm. what that led me to was the legal realm, because I thought, well, with law and policy, I can impact people, but I can also impact groups of people, with mm-hmm. these policies. So, and then with the global perspective, I always thought, I want to do something international. So when I went to undergrad, I focused on international politics, law relations organization. And then when I went to law school, I focused on international human rights law. And between those two, that kind of really set me up for some wonderful opportunities, many of them in different places, working in human rights groups, other kinds of advocacy groups, working on issues like policy, human trafficking, poverty, human trafficking, the refugee crisis, etc. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately, when we landed here in Colorado about 9 years ago, I had to kind of do a kind of review of my career and say, okay, well, I spent quite a few years in the advocacy world, but I also spent almost 10 years as a professor in California.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, do I go into education? Do I go back to advocacy? What do I do when I get here to Colorado? And I got a very strong sense that, at this stage of my life, maybe the best thing to do is to be a resource and to take these experiences that I've had and the education I've had and the exposures and really help a wide variety of organizations and people. And so that became the spark for global justice, because I really realized that there are many organizations, great groups like your own, Patty, that are doing fantastic work. And we want more people to know about it. We want more people to support it. We want more people to know that they have greater capacities through, supporting these organizations. So global became what I refer to as a resource to those organizations and to the broader community. So in 2014, September, we launched, and we launched with the vision that was to inform, impact, and inspire the generations to learn, lead, and do justice. And then with that broad vision mission, we were then able to do all kinds of things. So we can consult and support very specifically different organizational needs for different groups, or we could do forums and different kinds of speaking events to inform the broader public, or we could go and work with educational institutions like the ones that you mentioned, where I can go and teach courses and prepare sort of the next generation. So Global does a wide variety of things, but our singular mission is about justice. So all these different branches that we have of our work is geared toward helping people think about justice. And we can talk a little bit more about that topic, but that's kind of what we're all about.
Oh, wonderful. And you certainly have done a wonderful job of education. I certainly have enjoyed participating in many of them.
Thank you.
And you mentioned forums. Would you share about your Women's Empowering Forum that you initiated years ago?
Well, with you, I must say that, Patty, you were one of our first friends here in Colorado when we began this work at Global Justice, and we were dedicated to women's issues from the start. And you and I agree and know this, but for our community, I want everyone to know that when you talk about human rights issues, you have to be concerned with women's issues, because women are unfortunately disproportionately affected by human rights concerns. The violations that we often read about or talk about, they impact women. And that when women are affected, it affects children, it affects the elderly that they're caring for, it affects their spouses. And so it's not just about women either. It's about the impact that it has on their broader communities and families. So from that standpoint, we launched a project that was called the Women Empowering Women Project. And that project was really about raising up a strong generation of women leaders in different eras, whether you're a more seasoned leader, whether you're a younger leader, and really helping them see their potentials to serve and support other women. And in that context, you and I had a chance to collaborate in the context of what you do, and also through groups like Zonta Club of Fort Collins to launch our first Women Empowering Women Forum a few years ago. And that forum was held in Fort Collins and brought together women leaders and from a wide range of backgrounds to share their experiences and really to inspire the audience. And that's a wide range of people in the audience, right? And we did this forum and we really thought, gosh, we need to do this again. And it should be an annual thing. It should be a time for women leaders of all kinds to come together, to be encouraged, to be inspired, and to learn. And it gave us chances to learn about, how to be a more effective leader, to learn about issues affecting women, to learn about our world. And we have loved it. It's one of my favorite events that we do all year. It's always encouraging and supportive. I've so appreciated your support through the years in this. And this last time we had a chance to do it at Microplace, which is our new office and event center. And what a special time that was to gather, as a group of just wonderful women in our community at that venue too.
It was. And it's been a wonderful experience because you've also had younger girls and different age groups participating. So that's always been nice as well.
Yes, we felt very committed to the emerging leaders, and you work a lot with students as well, and so I really appreciate that. So at that particular event for this last year, we did an emerging leaders panel, and that panel brought together young women. A couple of them were interns for us that were in college, and a couple of them were students or just stepping out recently. And, I wanted people to see the impact of these younger leaders. You can be a leader at any point in your life. Leadership might look different at different points of your life, but I want to encourage younger women to know that they can make an impact already. They don't need to wait till they climb the corporate ladder or something like that to make that impact. And and these young women are so impressive, and so I really wanted them to have the chance to share some of their perspective and their work with the community.
Yeah, that's very nice, and it provides them a pat on the back that they're
Yes.
doing things and moving in the right direction, which is they need that as well. So that's very nice.
Yes, and similarly, they get encouraged by hearing from the seasoned leaders because they love that inspiration and learning from people who have been there, done that, which is great.
Yes, thank you. It's very exciting what you're doing in our community. Let's go on to our next question. Who were your role models or mentors growing up, and how did they impact your life?
Well, I've had the good fortune of many role models and mentors, but I think the key ones I'm just going to refer to as the ones that I share often with the community. One is my two grandmothers. They were mighty people. So my one grandmother, my father's mother, she was this remarkable woman who had never had an education past grade school, who never did anything remarkable outside of her community, but she was this remarkable prayer warrior, and she helped raise up an incredible family. She had 7 children. She raised most of them by herself while her husband traveled around the globe. She ensured that even though she didn't have an education, every single member of her family did. And we all went on to advanced opportunities and careers. And I really believe it stems with her. And then my other grandmother, which is my mother's mother, we always joke she was 4'10" and she stood like 6'10". She was just a force to reckon with. And she had been a principal of a school. She managed this big, place that they had to, raise crops. And she had a huge group of kids to raise herself with 6 children. She was really incredible. But what I learned and appreciated about her was the can-do spirit that she had. She could make things happen. And it didn't matter that she was tiny. It didn't matter that a lot of times she had to do it on her own, but she was able to muster up that strength and this ability to make things happen. And between those two women, one of great prayer and strength and courage, and this other with this incredible can-do, I felt like I had giant shoulders to stand on. They were great inspirations. And I already mentioned my mom. She is the most special woman in my life. But I'm also very, very encouraged by my own sister, who's younger. And yet a lot of times I learn from her, the things that she's doing in the corporate world, etc. But outside of my family, I've had a lot of wonderful teachers and a lot of wonderful professionals around me. One that was particularly important to me in college was, she was the director of student affairs at Georgetown University, and I was really involved in student activities and student government. So I think I spent more time with that person than almost anybody. And she always took the time, and especially when I was a college student, the college years can be challenging, and I was trying to do all these leadership roles and of course learning a lot of things at the same time. And she was so encouraging and supportive, but she also took the time to be straight with me, just to tell me, give me good input. Sometimes constructive criticism is as important as encouragement. And she was able to do both in a loving and caring and just really measured way. And I respected that so much. So I really appreciate that. And then later in life, as I got into advocacy, there were some remarkable women. Gay McDougall, for example, she was the first African-American woman who served on in an international, racism committee for the UN. And she was just a remarkable woman. And I had the good fortune of working with her for a while and just seeing how she had to navigate so many things in her life and her experiences and how she did that so effectively with grace and brilliance. So people like that also really, really inspired me. So I did benefit from a wide range, but starting with my family, extending to teachers and mentors, and then going into the professional world, I really have appreciated these women.
Well, and you were open to it. And that's what young women need to learn to do, is to be open to reaching out, not be afraid to ask questions as well. And we will run into many different women in our lifetime. We won't always have just one or two role models or mentors.
Absolutely. And you've hit so many great points there, Patty. First is, be willing and open. We need to be lifelong learners. It doesn't matter what stage of life. I'm 53 now. I still have things to learn about leadership, about my work. I've been doing this work for years, as you noted, and there's always something new to learn. So being a lifelong learner is great. I also think there's some benefit to being around people who are not exactly like you, because, you could do things well and in one way, but maybe someone else does it well in a different way. way. And there's something good to learn about that. And if I could ever give some input to our, younger generations of women, I'd say, hey, you have a lot to offer the world and a lot that we can learn from you, but don't miss the opportunity to learn from someone else who's been around the block a few times, because it's not that I am more capable or intelligent than they are. I'm just older.
Right.
I have a few more years and a few more experiences, and there are other women who can say the same about me. So I think there's many things, men and women, I would say, but that we can learn from each other, and we need to be receptive, as you noted.
Right. Well, and the variety of the individuals that come into our life makes a big difference as well. And you've demonstrated that excellently today by sharing your role models and mentors you've met along the way. So thank you for doing that.
I'm sure. Thank you.
So let's move on to, what are some of the challenges and opportunities that you have encountered in your personal and professional goals?
Well, there's many challenges. I think one of those challenges is, I'm kind of a planner. I like to be organized about, here's what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to. But I've also learned over the years that flexibility is a really important thing. That's a lesson, and a hard lesson sometimes, because you need to realize that sometimes you just have to go as opportunities arise. Sometimes you have to go with those individuals that go with you, right?
Right.
There's many things that we can plan, and I would never say don't plan or don't prepare, but leave enough room there for some opportunities. An example of that, I mentioned earlier, Micah Place, we were looking for a certain type of, office or, venue that was commercial. We never imagined this. Certain things didn't work, but then this did. And that was only because we had room and flexibility to allow that opportunity. And so I would really encourage that. The other kind of lesson is this idea that as much as I'm a pretty good person at not necessarily multitasking is kind of a funny word, but, working on lots of different things, I'm pretty effective at that kind of stuff. However, no one can do it all. And there are times that you just have to prioritize. And there's some good things out there that you may or may not be able to do because they're not the priority at the moment. Those are tough decisions to make, so it's not really deciding between good and bad. It's sort of good and better, right? And that's difficult, and that takes some wisdom and discernment to figure out what is the better, and not ping as much between things. That's hard. And then of course, when my children started coming along, I got married when I was 30, so a little bit older than some women, and then I had children at 35 and 40, which is also a little bit older than some women. And what I found is I felt very ready for children at that stage of my life, and yet I was also very involved with my career. So having to balance motherhood with a very involved career is not the easiest thing, and there are things that you have to trade off, and things that you may not necessarily do or do because you have those children. But my children were my inspiration for a lot of my work, so I couldn't not prioritize them, right?
Right.
And of
Exactly.
course, I'm mom, I have to do that. But there's choices that you make when you are a mom, and you're a mother as well. I'm sure you understand that. But there are a lot of people who maybe don't have children but have other things that are the same type of thing, whether it's caring for a parent, or maybe being a teacher and working with other children, or maybe just working in the community in different ways. But we have this tug between our work careers and some of those personal obligations. So those are just a few of the things that have been challenging in my leadership. But I think they're kind of universal too, in the sense that a lot of people have those similar types of tugs.
Oh, yes. Yes, we all do. We just have to admit them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's hard too, right?
Yes.
It's hard to say.
Well, and one of the things you touched on was we have all these plans, but we don't always have the time, and being able to figure out what's the best way to do it. In the last week, and as you mentioned, we're all lifelong learners. This last week, in my prayer a day book that I read every morning, my the post was patience versus passion, and it hit me on the right day to make me stop and think about some things that I was passionate about, but I was trying to squeeze them in, and they don't really fit. And so I had to step back and be more patient and let things flow in the direction in which they were meant to be.
Yeah, I think that's a great insight. Passion is a great word, and there are a lot of people who talk about, their passions. And I really
Mm-hmm.
believe that we should tap into our passions. I like the word purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I like the word purpose is that passion, it has a lot of sort of emotional charge, where purpose, I think, also requires the patience,
Yes.
the planning, the preparations. When you really know that this is something you have to do, you have to do some things to get there. And that sometimes doesn't happen quickly. Right. At Global Justice, we often use the imagery of mountains to talk about justice. And justice is something that requires passion, but it really requires patience, right? It's not something that happens quickly. So we tell people to think of the mountains and mountain climbing, that a lot of the biggest things that we're trying to deal with or overcome, we have to first prepare. My husband and son just climbed Long's Peak the other day. You can't just show up at Long's Peak and start climbing.
Right.
You have to prepare. You have to be equipping yourself, and you get there, and then you have to go through this arduous process. It's not instantaneous. So this patience piece also means preparation, that you are preparing yourself for accomplishing this great passion or purpose that you have. So that's kind of the way that I describe, this work, that this sense of purpose means that you also invest the amount of time and effort and patience to accomplish that end.
Yes, no, I agree. And just on a side note, I've been to the boulder field, through the boulder field, to Long's Peak, to the keyhole, and that was as far as I got. That path going from there up did not look inviting to me.
I'm not sure if it went to me too. At least you've gone further than I have.
Oh my goodness.
I do love the mountains, but that's one I haven't taken on yet.
Yes, no, I do love the mountains as well. So thank you for sharing that insight. So if you would share with us, what is your current job role, and share your passion or purpose for what you do?
So my title is founder president of Global Justice, and I think it's important to kind of distinguish the two parts of that title. So founders are people that come with a vision, and it might be a vision that you've been specifically given, or maybe it's a vision in a collective with a group of people. But the founder is someone who's sort of the keeper of that vision and says, here is the way that we want to, move. This is the direction we're trying to, to sort of lead people to. There's an end that we want to try to accomplish. The president is the one that creates the structures and the systems and the methodologies necessary to accomplish that vision, if that makes sense.
Yes,
so as founder president, I see my role in that two front, that it is the keeper of that vision. And, here's what we are, and here's what we're trying to do, and here's where we want to go. But as president, I also have to help guide and prepare people to get there. So most of my time is split between those two roles, right? Casting the vision, sharing with people what we do, why we do it, getting people to be energized and excited to join us. But then on the other side, it's also managing, our team, planning and preparing, doing some of the things that are, as a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, but I got to do some of that too, right? So that falls more on that side. But I think my overall purpose, besides this idea of engaging people for biblical justice, is also to prepare people for their own purposes, right? So when I often think about justice, I say we're not really an organization at Global Justice. We are a movement. We're trying to get people to sort of come alongside, but we don't need everybody to be an advocate. We don't need everybody to leave their jobs and suddenly start a nonprofit. We need people to do justice where they are. That means really helping them see their purpose in the work that they're doing. So maybe you are the accountant, or maybe you are the techie, or the artist, or whoever, and you can pursue justice from where you are. And so it's really helping people realize their purpose. Like, how can they do this important work from where they are, from what they do, what they are called to do. And so I would like to obviously inspire people through my work and through my example, but I also want to be inspired by watching what people can do in their own arenas. And so that's kind of what we do here at Global, is not just provide that resource, but in my role and in the roles around us, to try to do the both and, and encourage people to join with us and engage with us, but also encourage them to look within and see what they can accomplish.
Well, you certainly have done a wonderful job of that with your interns, with the wonderful young women that have worked with you over the years. So I commend you on bringing those along with you.
We have been we have some great young women and men who come in as interns, but we also have a great team that's kind of our regulars. And what's kind of interesting with Global is we're not all here in Colorado, so we're spread across the country. So there are people that maybe, you and I don't get to see every day, and yet they're also playing a really critical role to our work. So people in Virginia or DC, or people in California, Texas, other locations, and they are as dedicated to this as those that are right here. And that's inspiring to me, and some of them are students, some of them are professionals, and some are carving out a little bit of time, and some are trying to carve out more time. But I am so encouraged by that, because they believe in this work, that they will make those kinds of sacrifices.
Right. And then they also, when we work with all these different individuals, they also bring their different perspectives on what our vision is, and from their own life experiences, which is wonderful as well, I think.
Oh, I think so. And, sometimes and this from working with, interns and people like that too, that an intern comes in for an educational opportunity. And so we typically have at least one intern, every semester. And with the interns, they get substantial projects, because we want them to learn and have something really solid to grow. But in working with interns and the variety of people that they are, I've also learned, gosh, these are such high quality people with such great goals and aspirations. And so that's encouraging to me. It makes me feel like, hey, we've got a bright future ahead. Sometimes, when we get a little older, we think, oh gosh, this younger generation. But I can honestly tell you, when I engage with this younger generation, I am hopeful. I feel really good about where we're going.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to meet all of these individuals.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about Micah Place and what the name means, please.
Sure. So global justice is rooted in biblical principles, and we work with both faith-based organizations and secular organizations. But what we try to do is find common ground where we have principles that we can all agree on. And so one of the key verses that we use is Micah 6:8, which says, "Do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God." And that is really what it's all about for us. And that message, whether you are a faith person or not, or whether you have different kinds of faith perspectives, most people can agree with the central purpose of that verse. And so we've been working with that verse for many years. And then ultimately in February, we had an opportunity to acquire this historic building in downtown Loveland, Colorado. And it was built in 1893 and was referred to as the Hahn House, which was built by John Hahn, one of the early pioneers of Loveland. And when we got there, we thought, we want to respect and value the history of this building, of the Hahn House, but we also want this building to reflect what global justice is all about. So we renamed our facility there as Micah Place, after Micah 6:8. And so what we decided to do was to share the history and message of the Hahn House, but to also share the work that we're doing and where we want to go at Micah Place. And so Micah Place is our offices, but it's also a community center where we can have people come and reserve space for their meetings, for their special events. We host a lot of events there, but it's a physical manifestation of what we've been trying to do with our work, all throughout these years.
And it is a beautiful location for your events. And it's wonderful that it's open to the community to be able to enjoy that space as well. So thank you for doing that.
Yes, well, that was important to us. It had, it's been there since 1893, but it was a private home for many years. And then later it was other kinds of businesses, bed and breakfast and VRBO and things like that. But the community never got to expose themselves to this beautiful history. So we thought, we want this to be a place where people want to come and visit. And it's beautiful, as you know. There's a lot of the original parts of the building, and then there's some new contemporary things added in. So we think it's lovely, but we think it's just been a blessing to us. But when you're blessed, you have to share that blessing, with others. And that's our thought with Micah Place.
Right. Would you share about the store that you have and what you're doing there to introduce women's talents to others in the community as well?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the things we have at Micah Place is called the Global Market. And we kind of use it like an acronym, GLBLMRKT. So Global Market was launched actually in September 2019 at Grace Place Church. And so what we wanted to do is create a place where on Sunday mornings, people could come and shop artisan wares made by a range of artisans from around the world who were rescued from human trafficking, poverty, the refugee crisis, all of those types of concerns.
Mhm.
And most of these are women artisans from different parts of the globe who use whatever they have around them to create these beautiful things that then we can share with the community. So, this jewelry I'm wearing today, for example, these earrings are made out of cow horn.
Mhm.
And there's a beautiful woman in Uganda who shaped these earrings out of cow horn.
Mhm.
This kimono I'm wearing is made by a survivor of human trafficking from Cambodia. And each and every item we have in the global market has stories like what I've just shared with you.
Mhm.
So what we want to encourage is, as people come and shop the global market, it's really not about shopping. It's really about helping empower these artisans,
Right.
giving them a means so that they can take care of their families and their communities. And when those women mostly thrive, then we have all these other people thrive too. So it's been a really exciting thing. And over the last couple of years, just doing that, we have been able to disperse over $75,000 to about 15 different organizations in support of these different artisans, which has
Wonderful.
been fabulous. But now, as you referred to at Marketplace, starting September 1, we're going to be opening Marketplace 9 to 4, Monday through Friday, and we'll have the global market there. So instead of just having a Sunday morning experience, we now have it available to the community to pop in, and they can find special gifts or they can find something for themselves. But the idea is anyone can stop in and see what's the latest at the global market. So we're very excited for that too.
That is very exciting. That's wonderful opportunity for the community.
Yes, I hope so.
Yes. And with any new idea, there's always the marketing that goes along with it. And so we'll have lots of friends help market and share the word for you.
Oh, thank you. That would be wonderful.
So
yes, we want lots of people to come visit. But yes, starting September 1, it'll be Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. This month of August, we're kind of doing a soft opening where they can come on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 to 4.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good. Thank you for that, sharing that with us.
Great.
So what advice would you share with a young woman growing up today?
Well, I think there's several things. I think one of the immediate things, and because I'm a person of faith, is to start with your faith. What do you believe in? I think getting a grounding in that belief, whatever that may be, is so important for everything else. It's like the first floor of your building, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the foundation. And I think a lot of young women, no matter how talented, beautiful, wonderful, smart they are, they often get lost when they don't have that grounding. So start there. The second is to build really wonderful, strong relationships. Obviously, relationships start with family, but different people have different circumstances with their families. But it's really creating a community around yourself of whether it's family, friends, educators, peers, whatever it is that can really build and support, encourage you, and speak into your life. I think that relational piece. The third piece is really thinking about your future. And, as we talked about in this conversation, you can plan and things might go very differently, but you still need to have a sense of what it is that you're being called to do, or even if you're not called or feel the call, what can you step into that you can learn from and that you can grow from? And maybe that'll help direct your steps. And then the final thing I would say is what we talked about earlier is allow yourself the joy of flexibility. We all want a straight path to everything, but the realization is that a straight path doesn't happen for any of us. It really is about the little twists and turns, and there's something to learn about everything that you pick up along the way. I have found in my own career, even though I had a general idea of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do, it was not a straight path. And now at my current stage of life, I look back and go, wow, I had no idea I'd still be using that experience that I had in my 20s that I didn't expect to have, right? But it's really allowing yourself that room to learn and grow and experience life. And, I guess along those same lines of the flexibility is just remember that we get one life and we want to be able to enjoy it and experience things and not feel so rushed through it. I have two beautiful daughters that are twins. They're 12 and it's, sometimes it's 12 going on, 42, right?
Right.
And I try to remind them, be 12, and don't be 2, but be 12, right? But enjoy 12 and enjoy that space. Every decade of our life has something that we can gain so much from, and that we don't need to, barrel through it to get to the next. But similarly, don't be afraid of growing up and growing older, because it's a joy there too. And I have really loved the certain seasons that I've had recently. that looked very different than I did when I was a teen or a 20-something.
Mm-hmm.
And I love those years, but I wouldn't go back to those years because I found that there were better years ahead, right? So it's kind of a mix of comments, but hopefully that made sense.
Oh, yes. And the theme is to be joyful and enjoy every step of the journey.
Absolutely. And joy doesn't mean that everything's going to be good all the time.
Right.
You know, I think I always like to distinguish joy from happiness.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in our world, people are always chasing happiness. And sometimes you can be happy. There's happy things that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Joy is something that's more internal, no matter what your circumstances are. And when you have that strong belief system and you have that network of wonderful people around you, you can always have joy, even if things don't always go your way.
Right. I do agree with that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So as we come to the end of our wonderful visit this afternoon, do you have an inspirational quote that resonates with you that you would like to share with everybody?
Yes, it's a little bit of a story, but I'll share it. But everyone knows Mother Teresa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mother Teresa's a major hero for everyone, and certainly for me. And there was a time when there was a senator, I think Sarah Hatfield, who wanted to meet her. And went to meet her and, saw the devastation all around her because there were all these children suffering, dying every day. And I just tear up when I even tell the story. But he was so overwhelmed by what he saw. And he said to her, he said, Mother, she said, how do you do this? How can you be successful in this context? And then she replied, Senator Hatfield, I wasn't called to be successful. I was called to be faithful. And I found that quote to be so special to me, because when you're talking about justice and you're talking about all these concerns we have in the world, we can all be overwhelmed. We can all say, gosh, how do we ever deal with a drop in the bucket, right?
Right.
But we were not called to be successful. We were called to be faithful, to do what we can do on a daily basis. And of course, when you think about the person who spoke those words, it couldn't get more inspirational for me.
Oh, no. It's one step at a time. And you can't look too far ahead. And she has proven that through her wonderful life that she lived, and all the children and other individuals that she saved and gave them a little more joy in their life on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you so very much for sharing that. So I'm so grateful for you spending your time with us today. I got to know more about you as well, which was a treat for me. So I certainly appreciate that as well. Because when you sit and visit and people's lives are busy, you don't really get to sit and visit and ask questions. There just isn't a lot of time in lives for us to do that and get to know each other very closely. So as we come to the end of our visit, I'm going to share just a few of our upcoming events for Living Her Legacy. As I mentioned earlier, we invite you to stop by the art exhibition in Old Town on the north side of Cooper Smith's Pool Table Brewery, not the restaurant, but the one across the little walkway where the pool tables are. And on the north side, we are the renovation project to the east entrance of Old Town. So you'll be able to see some of the legacy honorees that are up currently. And I invite you to visit our newly renovated website. And to be honest, I'll never do that again. But it's livingherlegacy.org. And I had a wonderful board member, Sonia Cooper, who spent a year and a half with me as we patiently, not patiently all the time, but mostly patiently rewrote our 6-year-old website. And with the help of Brenda Davison, a wonderful creative web developer, helped us redo this website. So I do encourage you to stop by and take a look at it, if you would, please. Also, we have several events coming up. Do you play golf or know anybody else who plays golf? We are embarking upon hosting our first annual golf tournament, October 17th in Loveland at Mariana Butte, to inspire girls' futures. So feel free to reach out to me if you would like to play golf, or if you know somebody who might want to be a sponsor or volunteer. We can always use volunteers to help us that day as well. So that'll be a fun day. And that came about from a young lady I met through a weekly business meeting that I was invited to join, called 4BR. And Shella, who is now on my board, and I'm very blessed to have her as a board member. She has a wealth of knowledge as a young woman. She works with spray roofing and exteriors. And we were visiting one day about doing a golf tournament. And I was talking about Elise Carver and Hope Lives that Lydia Doty started years ago as well. And Lydia is one of our legacy honorees. And so Shella said, do you mind if Sprague hosts you and Hope Lives? I said, no, that would be wonderful because we all support women and girls. So the first tournament was June 24th. That was Sprague put on. And the revenue is split between the two of us. The next tournament is September 12th, and that is Hope Lives. And then ours will be October 17th. So we're very excited to conduct these this year and give people a chance to be out and about and support women and girls in their communities as well. Also, with COVID, everybody knows that all events have been kind of derailed. And we're now being able to get back into a plan of some type, maybe not the plan that we originally had, but a plan to move forward. And on November 3rd, we will hold our 4th Rise Women's Music Concert. And this is the first year it will be in we've enjoyed all our venues, but this is the first time it's in a restaurant venue. So we'll be at the Rio in Old Town in the Agave room upstairs. And I've got wonderful. We always have women of different age groups. And I believe this year we'll have from age 16 to 60s as our women musicians this year. So you can find the information on our website or our Facebook page. You can learn about our past events and programs with girls in our community as well on our website. At the top, there's a tab that says Events Photo Gallery. We've been blessed over the last year. We held our first Girl Leaders program for teenage girls in 2021. We've just finished our second 5th grade girl role model art workshop. And we partnered with the Boys and Girls Club first in Wellington in April. And then this last week, we partnered with the Matthews House. And we had girls from 5th grade through 10th grade that joined us this week, which was wonderful. And so that's fun too. And we have volunteer opportunities if you'd like to partner with one of the girls in our education programs. So mark your calendars for the second Saturday of every month at 2 p.m. Come and meet a new impactful woman with an inspiring life. And we will look forward to having you join us again. I don't see any questions at this time. So Sosamma, thank you very much for spending your Saturday afternoon with me and sharing your wonderful story with our guests. And if you would like to listen to it again, you can go to our YouTube channel, which is Living Her_Legacy, as our program that we utilize streams live to both Facebook and our YouTube channel at the same time. So thank you again, Sosamma. And thank you to our guests for joining us today for our speaker series. I hope you have enjoyed your summer and are staying as cool as best as you can in our summer heat wave. So please invite your friends to join you on September 17th to meet another impactful woman in our community here on our Facebook page. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye, Sosamma. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Patty, and thank you to Living Her Legacy, too.
Thank you. Goodbye now.